As I stood on the threshold of our new house, an unsettling chill crawled down my spine, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something inside was watching, waiting, and hungry for our arrival. My wife, Sarah, and I had moved to the countryside in search of tranquility, but as I pushed open the creaking door, the sense of tranquility transformed into an eerie stillness. Dust particles danced in the dim light, casting eerie shadows across the old, cracked wallpaper. The realtor had assured us that this Victorian-era mansion was a hidden gem, but now I questioned his motives. The place was a maze of narrow hallways and dark, foreboding rooms. The air was thick with the musty scent of time and secrets long buried. That first night, we heard whispers from the walls, faint but distinct, like the hushed conversations of spectral guests. Sarah insisted it was just the wind, but I knew better. There was something here, something lurking in the shadows. Things escalated quickly. Objects moved on their own. Doors slammed shut with a deafening force, and at night, we heard footsteps on the creaky floorboards. Sleep became a distant memory as fear gripped our hearts. One evening, I decided to investigate the basement, the epicenter of the Strangeness. It was a dark, damp abyss that seemed to defy the laws of physics. The air grew colder, the further I descended, and a sense of dread enveloped me. In the flickering candlelight, I stumbled upon an old diary hidden beneath a stack of decaying books. It belonged to a previous resident named Eveline, and its pages were filled with tales of despair, madness, and an unspeakable evil that dwelled within the house. She wrote of visions, of faces in the walls, and of a sinister presence that hungered for souls. I shared my findings with Sarah, and her face grew pale. She confessed to seeing those same faces in the wallpaper, contorted and tortured. We knew we had to leave, but the house had other plans. Each night, the malevolent force grew stronger, manifesting itself in terrifying ways. It whispered our darkest secrets and played on our deepest fears. We were prisoners in our own home. As the days blurred into a never-ending nightmare, we decided to perform a ritual mentioned in Evelyn's diary, an exorcism to rid the house of its malevolence. We gathered the necessary items, drew arcane symbols on the walls, and began the chant, our voices trembling with desperation. The house fought back, shaking violently, and the walls seemed to bleed. But we persisted, fueled by our determination to break free from this living nightmare. At last, with a deafening roar, the entity was expelled, vanishing into the night. The house fell silent, the oppressive atmosphere lifting. Exhausted and battered, we knew we had survived, but our lives would never be the same. We left that cursed place, never looking back. As we drove away, the moon cast an eerie glow over the old Victorian mansion, and I couldn't help but wonder if the malevolence we had banished still lurked within, waiting for its next unsuspecting victims. The day we moved into our new house, I felt a shiver run down my spine as I noticed the blood-red stains on the walls, stains that no amount of paint could ever hide, and I couldn't help but wonder what unspeakable horrors had unfolded within these walls before we arrived. My wife, Lily, and I had been searching for our dream home for years, and when we stumbled upon this old Victorian mansion nestled in the woods, it felt like fate. The house had character, charm, and was surprisingly affordable. It was as if it had been waiting for us. As we settled in, we discovered other unsettling details. The wooden floors creaked with an eerie cadence, as though the house itself was whispering secrets. Strange shadows danced in the corners of our vision, and the temperature dropped inexplicably in certain rooms. But we brushed these oddities aside, attributing them to the quirks of an old house. It was on the first night that things took a sinister turn. As we lay in bed, trying to sleep, we heard faint whispers, like distant conversations. At first, we assumed it was the wind rustling through the trees. But then the voices grew clearer, more distinct. They weren't coming from outside. They were emanating from the walls themselves. Lily and I exchanged nervous glances, our unease growing by the second. We ventured into the hallway, following the voices to a locked door in the attic. The door rattled as if something, or someone, was trying to escape from within. We decided to investigate the attic during the daylight, but the ominous aura of the room weighed on us. The attic was filled with old trunks, dusty books, and antique furniture. Among the relics, we found a journal, its pages filled with frantic scribbles and pleas for help. The author, a previous resident named Thomas, chronicled his descent into madness as he claimed the house was alive, a malevolent entity feeding on his fear. As the days passed, our sanity unraveled. We saw apparitions in the mirrors, twisted faces that leered at us. The walls bled not only red stains, but also cryptic symbols. Our nights were plagued by nightmares of a shadowy figure lurking in the corners of our bedroom. Desperate for answers, we sought the help of a local historian, who revealed that the house had a dark history. It had once been owned by a recluse who practiced forbidden rituals, seeking immortality. The house absorbed his dark desires, becoming a vessel for an evil force. Terrified yet determined, Lily and I decided to confront the entity. Armed with knowledge from the journal and the historian's advice, we performed a ritual to cleanse the house. The walls trembled, and a bone-chilling wind swept through the rooms, but we persisted. In the end, our efforts seemed to have worked. The sinister presence retreated, leaving our home in eerie silence. We had won, but at a steep price. Our peace of mind was forever shattered. As we stood outside the house, looking back at the cursed mansion, I couldn't shake the feeling that it still watched us, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul to fall under its malevolent sway. We left that house behind, a chilling chapter in our lives that we could never forget. The day we moved into our new house, I knew something was terribly wrong. The real estate agent had failed to mention the unnerving portrait in the hallway, a portrait of a family that looked exactly like ours, except for their empty, soulless eyes that seemed to follow us with each step we took. My wife, Emily, and I had been searching for our dream home for years, and when we found this quaint Victorian house, nestled in a quiet neighborhood, we were overjoyed. But as we settled in, it became clear that something sinister lurked within these walls. Our first night was marked by strange sounds, faint whispers in the darkness. Emily insisted it was just the old house settling, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it. The atmosphere grew heavy with an unexplainable dread. As the days passed, we began to experience bizarre occurrences. Objects moved on their own, and the temperature fluctuated wildly, even though it was the peak of summer. Emily claimed to have seen fleeting shadows out of the corner of her eye, while I heard the faint, mournful cries of children in the dead of night. We decided to investigate the history of the house, and what we discovered was chilling. The previous occupants, the Turner family, had mysteriously vanished without a trace. Their disappearance was surrounded by rumors of occult practices and a dark curse that had befallen them. One evening, as we were researching in the dimly lit study, we heard the soft sound of laughter echoing through the house. The laughter seemed to come from the walls themselves, as though the very essence of the house was mocking us. I felt a cold hand on my shoulder, but when I turned, there was no one there. Desperate for answers, we delved deeper into the house's past, uncovering a hidden door in the basement. Beyond it lay a chamber filled with arcane symbols and cryptic writings. It was a shrine to some malevolent force that had taken root in the house long ago. Emily and I knew we had to confront this evil. Armed with knowledge from our research, we performed a ritual to cleanse the house, banishing the dark presence that had tormented us. The air grew thick, and the temperature plummeted as we chanted the incantations, but we persisted. In the end, it seemed as though we had succeeded. The eerie occurrences ceased, and the house returned to an unsettling stillness. We thought we had won, but the house had other plans. One night, as we lay in bed, we heard the soft laughter again, growing louder and more maniacal. The portrait in the hallway began to shift, the eyes of the painted family now filled with malice. Emily and I fled the house, leaving behind the nightmare that had consumed our lives. As we stood outside, gasping for breath, we watched in horror as the lights in the house flickered and the sinister laughter echoed into the night. The house had won, and it would forever be a place of darkness and despair, a haunting reminder of the evil that lurked in the shadows.